Next Tuesday, Days of Summer begins for Black Ops 4 users on Xbox One and PC, where you'll be introduced to a whole plethora of new things to experience, including a new map and MP for free in the way of grind, a new Blackout map update with a lot of cool stuff to go after, a new zombies gauntlet and a few elixirs along the way for zombies, but of course the biggest thing, save for the weapons and DLC drops, is that of the new contraband stream. Whether or not you want to get to tier 25 for that weapon bribe, which gives you a chance of the items that you want in reserves in the way of either the ballistic knife, S6 Stingray, Peacekeeper, or Locust among the Mark II weapons you can end up getting, or whether or not you want that Vendetta sniper rifle at tier 50 more, I understand you're interested in grinding out the game. So today, I want to give you a few tips, like how we did at the beginning of Spectre Rising, on how you can keep up with and get these as fast as possible and as efficiently as possible. Now, as we mentioned in Spectre Rising's first split, this will be a minimum of roughly 25 hours in all areas except one, which we'll jump into first actually, of gameplay time, meaning that you'll have to be in-game and playing. So that means that anytime you're in a pre-game lobby, making classes, in a halftime side swap, or anything that isn't you physically controlling your player or you're respawning, you're not being credited with the time towards your tiers. So you want to make sure that you, of course, are as efficient as possible when you're going for these. So I want to again approach this in an umbrella fashion so we can talk about three main points of discussion: tier skips, game modes overall, and playlists. So let's start with the tier skips, perhaps the most relaxed way to do this, and as a result, the most efficient way if you play just for the tier skips. And again, all of this will primarily be around 25 hours minimum of in-game playtime, except for, well, this first tip, which is the zombies tier skip method. This is a way in which you can grind your tiers without really playing a terrible amount. In multiplayer or Blackout, you'll get one tier skip and the rest comes down to your playtime that you put in on top of that to compound your progress. But in zombies, you can actually get two tier skips in a short period of time because zombies doesn't count towards tier progression in your actual playtime. Now, admittedly, that kind of sounds weird the way that I described it, but you can get your daily tier skip across the board in either your first win in MP, your first merit, which is a kill, win, challenge, you name it, in Blackout, or by reaching round 15 in zombies. If you do any of those, that's your daily challenge out of the way, and you won't have the chance to get it until 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time again the next day. However, in zombies, because you don't get that tier progression on top of that by simply playing more than that, the daily callings have a second tier skip associated with it alongside an XP bonus. These challenges are relatively easier, some though admittedly can be tedious, so hopefully you get the luck of the draw, but by completing that, you'll be able to get that second tier skip from zombies, and most of the time, you can do these all in the same match, reach round 15, as well as knock out that daily calling. Now, the cool part about this method is that it takes roughly only a half hour. If you were to compare that method to how you could get two tiers in Blackout or MP, you would have to, at minimum, play an hour to get those two, so it's exponentially easier to obtain if you can nail that combo of the tier skip with round 15 and the daily calling together. Additionally, this is the only method that you can actually complete the entire tier stream by simply playing off the daily tier skips and, surprisingly, with time left over. If you do the 30 minutes of time to complete these across the 35 days of the event, you're putting in this split, at best, probably a total of only 17.5 hours of in-game playtime, and you'll complete over tier 50. But in MP or Blackout, if you do that comparably, 17.5 hours gets you nowhere near where you'll eventually be at tier 70 come the end of the operation. So you can see where that timing difference comes in absolutely huge. But that said, if you want to grind out the tiers and go even further, well, of course, hit those two tier skips and then dip on out, because after that, well, it doesn't count any progress towards that tier progression at all, given it's zombies. So if you want to work it out like that and then jump over to Blackout or MP, you can make a serious dent in your tier stream in a minimal amount of time. Outside of the zombies method, one way though also with tier skips that honestly I totally forgot about until recently was that of the Call of Duty companion app challenges. If you head over to the COD companion app, you'll notice that there are a thing called squads, where you can join a squad with you and your friends, and together, your progress will go towards weekly objectives or challenges that are given in the app. These allow players to earn rewards such as reserve crates, and one recently was a bundle crate, and a lot of previous items were tier skips. I think that whenever I redeemed things a couple of days ago, I ended up having a few weeks where it was 5 to 6 tier skips in total that I ended up getting for doing absolutely nothing but being a part of a squad, because others in my squad ended up completing that week's objectives that it was tethered to, whether they knew about it or not. So simply being in a squad and going for objectives can be a small but really helpful thing. Most of them may take you to just a different playlist that you aren't necessarily used to, but they're not hard to complete at all. So in that regard, what do you really have to lose? Create a squad with a few buddies and get a few extra rewards out of it, and whether it's drops or tier progression, I'm pretty sure that any of that's helpful and people will be all for it. But also, even if you're not too fond of Black Ops 4, there are rewards tethered to each objective for World War II as well as Infinite Warfare, so don't worry, there's stuff for pretty much everyone. Let's jump over to the second part of the umbrella that I want to discuss, that being the game modes. Now, ranking them in terms of importance, at least in my mind, I'm going to go Blackout, MP, and then Zombies. Zombies obviously at the bottom there because, well, you don't get tier progression by simply playing. You only get those 2 daily tier skips that you have with a global tier skip and also then the daily callings. MP isn't terrible, and we'll talk about some MP stuff in just a little bit here with individual playlists because, well, outside of Blackout, there's not really all that many playlists you can break into within Blackout. So with that, let's talk about Blackout and why I think it's the absolute best game mode to play. Not necessarily just playlist, but game mode. When we take a look at Blackout, it's one of those things where we come back to that sheer in-game playtime. When you consider things like MP, again, having that create a class time, that pre-game lobby time, that halftime around switch time, that stuff takes away from your actual in-game playtime that you can end up earning to your progression. Even when it comes down to things like loading into the game. I'm not entirely sure if this is still entirely the case. I remember back a couple of months ago whenever I was analyzing this kind of stuff, I ended up doing a side-by-side comparison on how long it took to jump into from a pregame lobby into actually playing the game in MP compared to the same thing within Blackout. And I think it was about a 60-second difference where Blackout was that much faster. So even when you come down to it, that stuff starts to compound on top of all your playtime, and at the end of a long gaming session, you'll have much more progress in one area as opposed to another. And when you take Blackout in particular, there are no things like those create a class downtimes or halftime. If you can end up staying alive, well, you're ending up getting a raw 15 to say 22 minutes of in-game playtime that, given that each tier is about an hour to complete, every third match you should be getting a tier and or a reserve case on top of that. So it's something that comparably, again, at the end of maybe an hour, it doesn't make as much difference compared to MP, but over the course of a day of playtime, 2 days of playtime, you've made an exponentially larger dent if you can end up staying alive. Now, granted, that is, again, assuming you can make it to endgame, that top 20, top 15, top 10 situation, or even win, but a lot of the times you will come into contact where you land in, say, an area that's a hot drop and you don't find a weapon, but the guy next to you finds a Spitfire and you're dead immediately. That sort of stuff is subject to happen. It's Blackout, it's RNG, it's complete random chance, but if you end up playing it for survival, you land off in a spot that's not as populated, it doesn't necessarily have as great a loot, but you continue to compound as you go, well, then you can, of course, make a larger dent into how long you stay alive and thus the amount of time you're earning towards your tier progression. But outside of Blackout, let's talk about some guaranteed time and tier progression because, again, Blackout is all dependent on how long you can stay alive, and that tier skip of the 2-tier skip system in Zombies is only good for those 2 tier skips. But if you want to completely just grind it out, well, MP is not a bad spot to do it. Some game modes better than others. Which brings me to the third and final portion that I want to talk about here in terms of the umbrella, that being the game modes. Now, to me, the best game modes are Safeguard, Control, Domination, Search and Destroy, and if they're available, things like the Endurance and Chaos Mosh Pits. Game modes like Safeguard and Control, of course, all of these are objective-based, so they do have longer time limits, and of course, you can end up taking them to that time limit and guarantee yourself a little more time. But things like Safeguard and Control end up already having decent round-based time parameters, and you can take them to overtime. So it's 5 minutes for a round of Safeguard, but also you can end up taking it to 4 rounds of overtime, that being 20 minutes of in-game playtime, minus again that little bit of halftime stuff you end up seeing. Control, again, if you end up playing with a team, you can control that and take it to the full overtime and then pull out that win, giving you, again, much more time than, say, a standard TDM, kill confirmed, or free-for-all. And then things like Domination, or of course your more so regulated 12-minute playlists that end up having a halftime with it as well. Search and Destroy, dependent again on your team. And then things that again are absolutely insanely good are your Endurance and your Chaos Mosh Pits. I remember when Chaos Control was a thing a couple of months ago. I'm not even kidding. I ended up jumping into a game with a couple of the Carnage guys and we were simply playing for in-game playtime. We were trying to pull off some insane kill numbers too, I think, where the record at that point was 700 kills or something in a Control match, but I was there just for the playtime. I knew I wasn't gonna get anywhere near that, so whenever I played this, I'd end up getting 45 minutes of in-game playtime, save for like maybe 4 minutes out of that given to the round switches. Anything that has that naturally longer time parameter, and also overtimes are best because again, you can force that even longer, sometimes doubling it in the case of safeguard. That kind of stuff is absolutely insane for elongating your guaranteed time. Now, unfortunately, things like the Endurance Mosh Pit and the Chaos Mosh Pit don't come around all that much, so things like Safeguard, Control, Domination, and Search are all your best bets here with this. So no matter which mode you want to jump into, whether that be Zombies for the quick 2-tier skips, Blackout for the longer uninterrupted time, or you want to jump in and just grind out some regular MP, there's definitely something you can do on all fronts. One thing that can help you boost this, but something that especially given as of late, I personally don't think it's worth, and of course with all the other returning items that we saw at the end of Spectre Rising, or rather actually even just after the first week of Spectre Rising, well, you can end up getting a boost in your tiers from the special orders in the Blackjack shop, all the way up to what is eventually going to be 25% that cap, so you end up having a 45-minute per tier pace rather compared to the hour it would normally take. That's something you can still do, but again, as it stands right now, 5 out of the 7 items in the shop are repeats, and what we'll more than likely see here in the next upcoming days are going to be price gouge stuff for sure newer items, but things that don't need to be bundled with supply crates but are. So that's something that if you want the boost, that's there to help as well, but especially again, as of how things have transpired over the past couple of weeks, I wouldn't really advocate for that. But ultimately, that is the best ways and the most efficient ways to end up ranking up your tiers here, given that Days of Summer has either been out for roughly about a week's time now for PlayStation 4 users, and then for those that are jumping in for the first time on Tuesday, I want to grind out that tier 50 Vendetta sniper rifle or that weapon bribe at tier 25, and I mean, maybe you want one of those stickers, calling cards, or tags, anywhere in between. But that said, that's where we're gonna wrap it up. So hopefully this helped you out in some way, shape, or form. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you guys satisfied with this tier stream? Personally, I really was hoping for a little more, but this is what we got. Love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section. You're looking forward to the tier 50 reward of the Vendetta, or maybe the weapon bribe more. Let me know your thoughts, but hopefully enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below, and of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Call of Duty Black Ops 4, MP, Blackout, Zombies. We got you covered the best of updates, news, information, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. So if any of that interests you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, there's the best place to get connected outside of YouTube. Correctly live on both those. So if you guys want to strike my conversation, ask me a question, what it may be, that link is down there in the description below. But let's head now to it. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I'm Untitled Chapter. See you guys later. Take care and peace.